Hello, everybody, and all you fantasy sports fanatics, and welcome to the UFFS podcast number 6. Glad to have you aboard. Want to start off this podcast right now just with just a quick push on the brand new launch. Very, very exciting. It was just announced this last week. There's been a couple videos floating around on social media for those of you that have not seen it, and it's concerning the Ultimate Fantasy Fighting League, UFFL. In other words, in terms of the abbreviation, but it's coming soon. Plan will be early 2021, maybe earlier, working on a strategy and a white paper now. And for anybody that's interested, please go to our website, www.uffsports.com, and pre-register. All the information will be provided there. Of course, there's Twitter and there's social media, but the website's a good place to go and register. Glad to have you involved in that. I am Darren Bates, of course. Larry Fisher with us as usual. How are you doing, Larry?
Doing good, Darren. Looking forward to episode 6.
Awesome. And we got another guy on the screen. This guy is Cameron Turner, special guest. So glad to have you joining us here, Cameron Turner. Of course, owner of the Norse Stars in the UFHL. How are you doing?
Good. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. Excited to come on and chat about the Norse Stars and just kind of be involved and chat about the UFHL.
Yeah, no, this is gonna be a really fun program. Of course, visiting us all the way virtually from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I think things probably pretty comparable weather-wise right now as we talk in end of August, but it's going to be a lot different if we were doing this in January. Let me tell you, and I think I might want to be doing it from your place.
Most times, for sure. Every now and then we get hit with a big winter storm, but for the most part, I think you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the agenda today, we're going to take a peek at the latest standings. Of course, we're going to delve in big time into the North Stars here and Cameron's life and how he works within the UFHL and sports world. But we're going to take a peek at the latest standings in the UFHL and the battle for the Klein Cup today. The UFHL NHL playoff pool, I don't know if I want to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it because I'm not doing that good. That's coming up. A peek at the past couple weeks. It's been a real couple busy weeks. I know Larry's been going out of his mind, but it's been a lot of fun. And of course, we always end off with important dates. There's always some important dates, things coming up that we don't want people to forget about. So that'll finish off the program. But first, Cameron, North Stars. You know, I got to tell you, I don't know much about Oklahoma. I really don't. I've never been, but I do know this. I do know, and I just saw him a couple of years ago here in Winnipeg. And Garth Brooks is from Oklahoma. That's what I know about Oklahoma.
That's true. Absolutely. He actually went to school at Oklahoma State, which is my hometown of Stillwater. So drive by on Duck Street there in town. There's a house that has written on the front that Garth and Sandy Brooks used to live here. So definitely a local legend and celebrity here in these parts and
Absolutely.
Elsewhere for sure.
He's a big deal. He's an amazing performer. So, hey, if you have some pull down there, and he might have some interest in owning a franchise,
Right.
becoming a scout, or singing the national anthem in the Klein Cup playoffs.
If I bump into him, I'll ask him.
Okay. You never know.
Right.
So happy to have you on board and a part of our fantasy platform. It's it's guys like you, early adopters, that make things fun. It's all learning for us from both sides, interacting within our chats that we have within the UFHL platform. There's a lot of great ideas being shared, and I'm not sure when you came on board. When about did you come on board with the UFHL, Cameron?
I started talking with Tony there in early summer, and probably around May is when we started talking more serious. In early June is when I won the franchise and paid for it. Late June and July 1st is the official start date I've been going with for the North Star. So it all kind of came together over the first couple months of the summer, and it's been an amazing experience, and I'm loving every bit of it. Spending a lot of time doing it. It's really something I've been able to delve into and put a lot of my hockey passion into and try to build something out of nothing. So it's really fun.
So 2 months, you know what? It seems to me like you've been around for 2 years. I mean, you've been pretty active already. So it's it's hard to believe time flies. It's been a busy summer for you and for us. You know what I thought we might do is, before we get into the franchise itself, let's talk a little bit about Cameron Turner. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So, like things like maybe favorite sports. NHL team doesn't have to be hockey. Can be NHL. Can be other. Why don't we talk about that? What do you like to get into sport wise?
I've always been huge into hockey, of course. Dallas Stars are my NHL team. I grew up going to Tulsa Oiler games. Now I cover the Tulsa Oilers, so getting a chance to be on the inside is really cool, especially a team I grew up watching. I was lucky. I was 5 in the early 90s, living in Oklahoma at the time when both the CHL returned after it had been gone for about 10 years in the 80s and early 90s. It came back, the Central Hockey League, and at the same time, Dallas got a team from Minnesota, moved down the North Stars. So right at the same time, I had a local team I could go see, and I had a team with regional coverage, and I fell in love with Mike Modano and the Stars, and that was a fun ride that led to 99 in a cup, and Tulsa has been an amazing ride getting to kind of go learn the game in person. So it was really fortuitous turn of events when both teams came back in the early 90s.
So you've been a hockey fanatic for a long time. I don't know. To be honest, I am not aware or familiar with the Tulsa Oilers. Larry probably is. I'm not that familiar.
They're in the ECHL now, so they were in the Central Hockey League for years. They've had a team here in Tulsa off and on since the late 20s, called the Ice Oilers at first, because the baseball team was called the Oilers. Now the baseball team is called the Drillers, but definitely a big hockey city here that is underrated. A lot of people don't really kind of realize how many people in Tulsa are into hockey. Always have good attendance, top 10 attendance in the ECHL, always top 2 or 3 in the CHL, but definitely a team that's hardworking. They were in the Western Conference Final in the ECHL a couple years ago, took that to Game 7. Should be good again coming up this upcoming season. So a fun team to watch, a stable team, and definitely a very underrated hockey city here in Tulsa.
Maybe you need an NHL franchise.
I don't know if we could support that with the Thunder playing at the same time over in Oklahoma City, but it's good getting 6,000 in on a weeknight and sometimes 10 on the weekend, and depending on if there's a retirement going on or some kind of ceremony, we've even had as many as 18,000 there for an Oilers game. So it can get up there, but consistently it would be tough to fill an NHL arena. Although the BOK Center is NHL quality.
That's pretty impressive crowd. Looked like you were eager to say something there, Larry.
No, I was just going to say we have that in common. We both grew up fans of the Oilers because I was from the prairies and grew up in a family of Oilers fans. So Tulsa Oilers, Edmonton Oilers, we have that in common for sure. And it's interesting to hear that Tulsa and the state of Oklahoma is that big into hockey and can get 10,000 fans out on a weekend because, like you said, I think it's an underrated state as far as when people think of America and of the states that are big in hockey. We think Minnesota, we think Michigan, but we don't necessarily think Oklahoma. And I didn't realize the proximity to Dallas and that it was that close to Dallas as well to take in the Stars games and follow them. So interesting for me. I'm learning as we go.
Yeah, it's only a 3.5 hour drive down to Dallas. And then, of course, a little bit further, St. Louis is only about 7 and Denver is about 9. So you're right in the middle of a triangle of teams. So you got a lot of Blues, Avalanche, and Stars fans here in Oklahoma. And then, the original 6, of course, you got Blackhawks, Red Wings, Maple Leafs fans. They're the majority of the ones you see. But definitely fans from everywhere. Pittsburgh now, of course, but it's definitely been growing, and it's not quite what it was in the 90s when Oklahoma City had a team too, that with the rivalry going on, but it's still alive and well in Tulsa for sure.
Is there any alumni from the Tulsa Oilers that are notable NHL alumni or any Oklahoma-born NHL players?
Matt Donovan, he was NHL. He played for Nashville, and he was from Edmond. He grew up playing. His dad owned a rink there in Edmond, and he grew up playing there. Ended up going up to Cedar Rapids to play junior, and then going on to the NHL. But he has had the most experience as far as games played, and he's the highest draft pick born and raised in Oklahoma. There've been a few guys who have come in and played here after being born or have been born here and grew their game elsewhere. But Matt Donovan would be the one that most people would recognize playing in the league as recently as a year or two ago.
Yeah, he's a puck-moving defenseman, good defenseman. I recognize the name. I remember him. He had a decent run, and obviously I'm assuming he's still active in pro because I'm guessing he's only in his late 20s now, but certainly a name that I'm familiar with, Matt Donovan, so that's a cool tie-in as well to Oklahoma.
He's working as an assistant coach with the Oklahoma City Blazers junior team. They're an NAHL 3 team that he's an assistant coach with. I had a chance to talk with him a couple months ago. My first video as part of Anoki on Hockey. First interview was with him. I was able to kind of chat over the phone. It was a nice opportunity to kind of get the experience of somebody who grew up. He's my age, actually. We grew up at the same time, so he's 32. Grew up the same, watching the same players. He just was at the rink. I grew up an hour away from the rink, and it's crazy to just sit back and listen to him talk about his experience and how it led all the way to the NHL.
No doubt. And is he retired now and he's turning his attention towards coaching and growing the game in Oklahoma, or is he still planning to potentially go to Europe and play, or what? I mean, obviously at 32, he's probably good enough to still continue his playing career, but is he focusing on coaching and growing the game?
Yeah, he's definitely still good enough to go play, but he has a school in Oklahoma City. He's kind of running a training program. He does clinics. He does equipment. He has the assistant coach for the OKC junior team. So he's really turned his attention to growing the game, and the youth game, especially in Oklahoma City and Oklahoma in general, which is one reason he was accepting when I reached out to him, because that's what I'm trying to do, is try to find some players who have been from Oklahoma to grow exposure of the game here in the state and help people within the state realize how much history of hockey there is too, and people outside the state as well.
That's pretty cool. That aligns with UFFS goals, is to try and grow sports to people that don't even maybe have opportunity. That's something we're seriously looking at within our platform as well. So good on you. I never thought of Oklahoma as when I think of hockey, I don't think of Oklahoma. I never would have. And I learn something new every day. So sounds like a road trip to me. If you've got a couch and I can be on it, then someday I'm coming down there. We're going to take in some hockey. How about that?
Oh, absolutely. Hey, we got a guest room better than a couch, so come on down.
I don't need much. I'm not that fancy, let me tell you. But how about you? Let's focus on you for a minute. So hobbies. I think probably sports, covering sports, writing about sports is obviously something that you do. But other than that, and other than shooting pucks through the drywall, because I've seen them, is there anything else that you get into on a daily basis?
I've shot a few pucks that I wish I had aimed a little better, but no, I definitely enjoyed that. I try to get some writing done. I'm trying to expand a bit. I have a lot of experience and have been published several times with the hockey writing, but I'd love to get into music. I love music a lot. I sit back and listen to my music while I write. I'm big into indie, especially electronic indie, alt music. Of Monsters and Men would be my favorite group. Churches, Always, Metric. Those are some other great ones that I like. So definitely music. I would like to get into doing some interviews with some musicians that I listen to as well. History is another big thing I like to study. So usually I'm doing one of those three things, either hockey, history, or music. That's kind of what I'm passionate about.
Nice. Music goes with everything. Music.
Oh, absolutely.
As far as I'm concerned, music, hockey, UFFS, it's a beautiful world.
Oh yeah.
So this is just a random question. When you get up in the morning, what gets Cameron Turner excited? What do you get out of bed? And first thing that I want to think about and I want to do when I get out of bed in the morning, just a quick warning, it's a family show.
It's pretty boring, but also exciting at the same time if you're somebody like me. But the first thing I do every single morning is grab a coffee, go outside with my pup Howard. We sit out there in the backyard, Howie and I, and we just listen to the birds, wake up a bit, drink the coffee, contemplate what we have on the schedule for that day, maybe check messages in the Telegram here in UFHL or on Facebook Messenger for Puck Authority, but just kind of get up and slowly get into the flow of things with my coffee outside, sitting with my dog, listening to the birds.
Love it. Sounds like an Oklahoma or Manitoba or Kelowna type of thing to do, if you ask me.
Yeah, I thought Cameron was going to say first thing I do in the morning is send out some trade offers in the UFHL and check in on who's sending me offers for the North Stars. But certainly, yeah, that's a great way to start the day.
That's definitely part of the play, and part of the trajectory of each morning is as I'm drinking my coffee, I'm checking the messages. And yeah, sometimes there's a trade offer. Sometimes there's just a friend who's wanting to chat about something. I've gotten to know Donnie with Rock Republic or Adam with Outlaws. There's a few different people I've gotten to kind of chat with behind the scenes a bit. So it's fun. You never know what you're going to be able to see when you get on there in the morning and get into those conversations and make friends.
Okay, so I'm interested to get into some finer details of the North Stars here. Let's talk about. I've seen your brand, love your logo, love your brand. I'm gonna start this off with just a couple of guesses, and I might be way off base. I have no idea, but a couple things come to mind. So I see Norsemen as in Vikings. There's a ship, I think, or a boat or something that's involved in this. Kind of tells me explorers, adventurers, and maybe that's kind of what you're going for. And I also think there's a Minnesota North Star thing in there. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me how you came up with the logo. Maybe there's a story behind it. Just give it to us.
Well, with the name, first of all, with North Stars, definitely a Minnesota tie there with the Minnesota North Stars, with them coming to Dallas. You know, it's kind of what I consider the beginnings of my hockey experiences and hockey love, because that's where the team came from. That's where Madonna got drafted. I have a Madonna North Stars jersey that I'm fond of. So there's definitely that aspect. And then, both my parents went to Northeastern Oklahoma A&M. They happen to be called the Norsemen. My middle name is Dane. And so there's likely some Norse in my blood going back centuries as well. And it just kind of everything seemed to fit when it popped into my head. So North Stars has a bit of a family tie for me and a bit of a hockey tie. And then the logo, I was working behind the scenes. We were able to get Malty and Tony, get a lot of help from them, and we were kind of able to brainstorm. And I was wanting to take some kind of word art, kind of like the Washington State Cougar head, or incorporate letters to turn it into a design. And Malty was able to take that idea and turn it into that Viking ship with Norse on the sail and stars spelling out the ship. And it's just an incredible design that, I can't take much credit for, other than saying, I'm thinking of a ship with the letters NS. And she said, what if it had the whole word on it? I was like, even better.
But ideas got to come from somewhere. You can take all the credit. You're here on the show. You can take as much credit as you want.
I planted the seed. That's about it. Colors are mine and the idea. That's it.
Love it. Can't wait to see some merch. Of course, you can see I'm wearing the merch today, Boston Bruins. I think everybody knows I'm a Bruins fan. I didn't mention my playoff beard. It's the Boston Bruins playoff beard. I hope I won't have to shave it off anytime soon, but it might be coming to that. We're not here to talk about the Bruins, but I want to talk about the merch. So hoping to see some stuff in the near future with the North Stars brand on it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that as well. I have a lot of ideas, different stuff I'd like to get out there. And with Boston, you have an iconic logo there that everybody knows and everybody associates with the Bruins. You have people who might not know anything about hockey, but they see a Bobby Orr jersey, they know exactly what that is. So, that would be incredible down the line if somebody could just see the colors or the outline of the ship and know what it was. So merch is definitely a big part of what we're trying to do with the North Stars, and especially having the color scheme and the logo that we have. I think we have an opportunity to come up with some pretty cool products that people are going to like.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, the jerseys are sharp looking. I've seen them, and at least the mock-ups of what the jerseys and the color scheme's going to be. And I think a lot of people will be interested, and I'm sure you could do hats as well and all the rest. I'm sure there'd be a lot of people wanting to rep the North Stars brand in the years to come.
I'm excited about it. And there's another little subtle thing there with the colors and brand is the shades are a little different to make it work with the jerseys, but those colors come from the state flag of Oklahoma. So another little layer there as well, inspiration for that color scheme.
Nice. A lot of thought goes into this stuff. Impressive. Very impressed, Cameron. So you say like it's been June, so July, August, 2.5 or so months you've been involved in the UFHL, but you've been a busy man. You've been busy this week. Big announcement. I watched the video. A new hire, assistant GM. Tell us about it.
Absolutely. Brent Baldwin, he's joining us. I've spent a lot of time working with him in the past. We both wrote together for the Sin Bin. So I know his work, I know his hockey mind, and I also know that he and I get along really well. He was always one of the guys at Sin Bin where we were chatting behind the scenes. I've had lengthy Facebook message chains with him going back 4 years. So I know his mind. I know that we think the same way. And I was really excited that he was interested in joining us. And I think he's going to be a big asset. He's already proven to be a big asset this weekend. He's been instrumental in some trade talks. He's been able to meet with some owners when I had prior obligations. So he's definitely been a huge asset just in the couple days he's been with the North Stars.
I got to tell you something. I watched your video when you made the announcement, and I really liked what he said. And this is actually what I quote from Brent. He said, "We need hockey smart people. If you don't have that, then nothing else matters." And
Absolutely.
I thought that's pretty cool. These guys mean business. This is pretty serious stuff. It's becoming more of a business, and this is what we're seeing more and more of in the UFHL platform. So I'm excited to see what you guys can do. So you talked about some trades. He's already brought some value. Let's delve into your roster. What's going on? Are you willing to talk about your strategy, what you're doing, what's happened this week? And I know Larry knows exactly what's going on, but he can chirp in here as he needs to as well. But yeah, go ahead, talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, go into a little bit. Can't lay out a blueprint of our entire strategy for everybody, of course, but no, definitely trying to add some scoring. We're trying to get some youth. That's one thing I ran into at the beginning is I come from a strictly hockey background. I've done some fantasy, years ago, but nothing near this serious, which is another reason I'm excited to bring Brent in. He does have that background, but the team I built at the beginning, they'll be tough to knock out of the Stanley Cup playoffs, but they don't put up a lot of fantasy points. So I've been trying to kind of find some offense and trying to make some adjustments there. So we did make a preliminary agreement to move Carey Price to bring in Jonathan Marchessault and some other young talent. So that's a big deal we're excited about. Those are the two bedrocks there, but we're also getting Jared Snorty, Brady Shea in that deal. So there's more to that one, but that's something we're excited about. Just trying to kind of aim for the future here and not put everything into one season.
What do you think, Larry?
That's a blockbuster deal coming down the pipe. Like Cameron said, we can't unveil all the details on that because a couple of the players are still involved in the NHL playoffs, so that trade won't officially be approved until those teams, their NHL teams, are out of the playoffs. But certainly it's a 9-player blockbuster that's going to turn some heads in the UFHL. And certainly, like you said, the two big names, Carey Price leaving, Jonathan Marchessault coming in, but a big package coming back to the North Stars. It's exciting, that trade. And just in general, I know I was a bit surprised by that trade because listening to Brent's introduction, he focused heavily on building from the net out and kind of almost declared Carey Price the franchise player. And then within 24 hours, I think you guys were kind of testing the waters maybe on see what was out there for Price and then pulled the trigger. So interesting to me that the goaltending standpoint maybe shifted just through you and Brent's back and forth discussions. And like you said, when you take a closer look at the scoring system and the way points are tallied in this league, which we do try to emulate real world values as much as possible. So a stay-at-home defenseman or a rugged defenseman like a Jared Tenorti or player like that, he still has value in this game. It's not strictly goals and assists and points. Penalty minutes, hits, shots on goal, everything counts for something. So we do try to emulate the real world values, but a bit of a surprise to me to see Carey Price on the move from the North Stars.
Yeah, it definitely happened quickly. It was kind of something that we didn't intend to happen, and circumstances kind of one thing led to another. We had some talks that were interesting and others that weren't so much, but once we decided to kind of look into that, we're still, committed to building a defensive team and a team full of goaltending, but, we're also committed to building for long term, and the opportunity to bring in some young scoring and some young prospects to go with some youth on defense that we have was too much to pass up, and we'll be able to go out and continue our strategy and find some goaltending as well. But the opportunity to build in other areas happened very quickly, for sure.
Sure. And talk about going through the redraft process, because obviously the North Stars were part of the UFHL redraft in July, and Carey Price was your second round pick. But talk about Tyler Bertuzzi and the significance of selecting him in the first round. Was that a connection as far as favorite player type thing goes, or was it more so related to, I know he's got a very good contract, cost controlled player, and trying to build within the salary cap, because the UFHL uses all the actual NHL contracts as well as the NHL salary cap, both the ceiling and floor. So was he attractive as a first round pick for his contract, or you like the way he plays as sort of an agitator type guy, maybe a bit of a face of the franchise? Or what attracted you to Tyler Bertuzzi?
Definitely, it was a contract that caught my eye at first and kind of drew my attention to the fact that I like the way he plays. He's got a lot of potential ahead of him, and he's already a dominant force, like you were saying, agitator, kind of getting in there, getting the job done. He's going to be a top-line guy, but he's also going to provide that physicality. But the main thing, like you were saying, is he's locked down for a cheap contract for, I believe, 6 years. So that was the thing that drew my attention, was the opportunity to get a player of his caliber who's worth probably, $6 million a year at this point, and he's going to be, worth $1 million to $2 million for the next 6 years. So that was definitely what drew my attention to him.
Man, you guys are getting me excited. I was sitting here and actually it almost brought tears to my eyes. I feel like I'm in an NHL boardroom here right now, listening to you guys talk about business and strategy and players and why not. And this is what we're going for, right? You own a franchise, Cameron. Can you imagine you're operating it like you own an NHL team, right?
That's the idea, for sure. It's a lot of fun, and it's growing every day. It was just me for the first several months, and now we're expanding and growing and having those talks behind the scenes. And it really is every day becoming more and more of a franchise, more people. At first, it was just myself running a team, and now it's an entire organization, and we've got like-minded people in here trying to grow this into everything it can be and more.
And your defense is in really good shape. You got Oliver Ekman Larson back there. Now, like I said, you got Brady Shea coming in. You got Esa Lindell and Connor Murphy as well. But Esa Lindell, he's a Dallas Stars player. I think he's the only star on the roster as of now. Talk about, I guess, the pride in having a Dallas Star on the roster and a guy like Esa Lindell kind of helping anchor your blue line.
Absolutely. I was definitely glad to get Esa. Definitely being able to watch him play with Dallas has been something that allowed me to know exactly what kind of player he is. And another thing is he's got first or second pair talent in most other teams, but with Heiskanen and with Klingberg, he's the number 3 defenseman in Dallas, so he's not getting the top matchup. So he's got the opportunity to go out there and shut down the opposition. He can score when needed. He put up a beautiful goal the other night. So he's kind of a player who, because of where he sits into the system, he's able to produce even more than his already incredible talent would provide.
And I think, like we said, with the UFHL trying to emulate real-world values and incorporate as many, categories or different scoring categories, not just your standard points. I think a guy like Esa Lindell, like I said, Tyler Bertuzzi, he brings a lot. He's a multi-category, multi-stat kind of guy as well. So as much as you said, it's a team that could win in the NHL playoffs. I think the Norse Stars might surprise you a bit in the UFHL as well, as far as how impactful they are in this fantasy league, because we try to emulate the real world values and make sure that if they're an important defensive defenseman or shutdown defenseman in the NHL, that still has value in the UFHL. So I think the fact you built a strong NHL team on paper will prove quite successful as well when it comes to the UFHL and the way the scoring system's set up. So that's exciting as well.
Definitely exciting. I'm really looking forward to kind of letting the action get underway. It's fun watching the Klein Cup playoffs, but I'm really looking forward to this next season getting underway so I can see my team out there. We can see what the North Stars are doing, and we can get into play for real. And there's a lot of planning right now. It's a lot of fun, but it's going to be even more fun when the puck drops and we've got a game going on against Duckman or against Rock Republic. It's going to be a lot of fun.
You know what, Cameron? it's next to your country in a lot of cases and a lot of times. And for Maple Leaf fans, and I actually started out as a Maple Leaf fan when I was in elementary school, but it's next to your country every year, and I got sick and tired of that, so I just had to move on. Still would like them if they could ever do something, but we all know that they don't really ever do anything. So that's where we're at. So it's next to your country for you. You didn't make it into the Klein Cup playoffs this year. They are going on. We've got 8 franchises in there. So let's have a little peek at what's going on. And if we start off with the Allen Conference, which the North Stars plays out of, we've got looks like the Defenders have a pretty commanding lead over the Rock Republic. I don't know if there's anything that's going to change here. And feel free to participate and speak on what you see in here as well, Cameron. But I don't see anything changing here, Larry.
Yeah, I think the Defenders. I think what happened with Rock Republic is they had a roster that was really strong in the first round, but they lost half their players, and Defenders carried over more to the second round. Rock Republic had a number of strong performances from Calgary Flames as well as Montreal Canadiens. Donnie, the GM of Rock Republic, is a Montreal Canadiens fan. He picked some real good guys like Jesperi Kotkaniemi and guys like that stepped up in the first round for Montreal. But when Montreal and Calgary didn't advance, they lost a lot of their firepower, and Defenders carried more people through, which again, it's exciting and interesting how the UFHL playoffs work and the playoff draft, where you pick a team prior to the playoffs, and as the players advance in the NHL, your roster size either stays the same or decreases. So I think that's what happened there. Is Defenders had a slightly bigger roster going into the second round, and that advantage has played out on paper as far as where we stand halfway through the second round.
I think that's a fun deal with the UFHL playoffs, is having to redraft every round as well, and the strategy that brings into it. The Monarchs, they have several Tampa Bay Lightning players. The Titans have several Dallas players. So when your teams that you've loaded up on, when they're doing well, it kind of gives you the opportunity to ride on that momentum as well. So I think that's a fun variant that makes the UFHL playoffs and the Klein Cup competition even more exciting to watch.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's strategy going in. What are you going to do? Who are you going to load up on? And it depends who wins, right? That's going to really determine how you continue. So if we continue on in the Allen Conference, the Strong Islands kind of taking it to the Tornadoes. I don't see too much change in there. But as you mentioned, Cameron, if we get into the Legends Conference, it's actually it's maybe too close to tell here between the Monarchs and the Grizzlies. The Monarchs, of course, owned by Ashley Murray. But I think there's opportunity here. Yeah, it's hard to say. Bit of a spread, but.
Yeah, the Grizzlies are strong with Colorado players, and Monarchs, as we know, they have 9 Tampa Bay Lightning players on their roster. So as far as Tampa's going to go, or the Monarchs are going to go as far as Tampa can take them, kind of thing. And Tampa's up 3-1 on Boston, 1 win away from the conference final in the East. Not to rub it in, Darren, but they are. And that's looking good for Ashley Murray, because had Tampa lost to Columbus in that rematch from last year's playoffs in the first round, then Ashley Murray's Monarchs don't have much left going into the second round. Even if they won their first round matchup, they're down 9 players. So again, it's so much of it is strategy. When you just draft once before the playoffs, you can go best player available and get 16 players from 16 different playoff teams, and you lose 8 of them after the first round. Or you can draft every single round 10 players from the same team, and if that team makes it all the way and they perform decently, even if they're a fourth liner, you're going to have that extra player going into the next round, which can be a big advantage. So certainly a lot of strategy. Ashley Murray loaded up on the Lightning, and they're rewarding her so far.
Yeah, they are. You know what? This beer's getting itchy anyway, so you can rub it in all you want. I watched that last game, and I was really disappointed. In fact, you know what? I went out and mowed the grass halfway through the third period. I said, enough of this. I saw that one goal just flutter over Halak's shoulder, and which he didn't have any chance on. I thought, this is just how it's going to go. It is what it is. But, continuing on with the Klein Cup playoffs and the UFHL and Legends Conference, Titans, there's a pretty big gap here between. I know Lauren White's trying hard. He's given her for the Gators there, the general manager, but pretty widespread.
Yeah, that matchup as well is it's interesting, because in the Allen Conference, it's the 2 higher seeds that are winning the matchups, and you go over to the Legends Conference and it's the 2 underdogs, the Monarchs and the Titans, where The Final Four, it's a Final Four on both sides. They were the 1 to 4 seeds, which was interesting. All the favorites won in the first round. So these are the ultimate matchups, you could say, as far as 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3 seeding in both conferences. But yeah, in the Allen Conference, the two top seeds are ahead, and over in the Legends Conference, the 2 underdogs are leading. But like I said, we're only halfway through the second round, essentially. If some of these series go 5, 6, 7 games, we could see quite a flip yet in those matchups. But so far, so good for the Monarchs and the Titans there in the Legends Conference.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch, see how this plays out as we follow along, as we actually emulate, and part of our deal is what the NHL does, we do, depending on the players and how they're loaded up in the franchises. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch in the Klein Cup playoffs. Speaking of the playoff pool, we added a little extra wrinkle of fun to our thing. Larry, I know you've been tracking that. As the UFHL NHL playoff pool, you have to make picks from the NHL, how many games your team you think will win and how many games. And of course, you have to make your pick in the UFHL, but obviously we don't determine the number of games. Now we did our pro versus rookie thing, and at first I was getting all cocky and I was gloating, and yes, how can the rookie, being me, be that far ahead of the pro Larry? And I was kind of taking it to you. I don't know. I maybe I shouldn't be picking on the logo I like best, is kind of how I did things, or maybe the favorite team I had in kindergarten in the NHL, but that's kind of what I did. Worked for me at first. It's not working anymore, Larry, at least so far. And the way it looks right now, I don't think you're going to have to run down the streets of Kelowna naked with an Elite Assassin sticker on your forehead. It's actually looking pretty good for you, buddy. So let's talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, I was more worried about the dunk tank in Saskatchewan in January than the streaking in Kelowna. But nevertheless, the standings have, again, from one round to the next, they very much do shake up. And you were tied for second after the first round. I think I was tied for ninth. Now it's very much flipped. I think I'm tied for third, or I think I'm in fourth, or tied for fourth. And you've slipped down into a tie for 19th based on the play-in round results. You were ahead, and then the first round I pulled ahead. So I think that threat of the dunk tank in Saskatchewan made me take my picks a little more seriously and do a little more research, or maybe I was just warming up in the play-in round. But certainly we have to mention Cameron as well. The Norse Stars are right in the mix here too. They're in 6th place and only 8 points out of first place in the UFHL NHL playoff pool. And the way it works is the points escalate each round. So in the second round of the NHL playoffs, if you pick the right winning team is 4 points. If you also get the right number of games, that's a bonus 4 points. So you're getting 8 points per series. And in the UFHL, if you pick the right winning franchise in the matchup, you get 4 points. So you could come away with 12 points, I guess you could say, between the two leagues per series. So it's interesting. And Cameron's right in the mix as well. He's nipping at my heels there in 6th if I'm in 4th.
Yeah, we've got Donnie Tulk leading this thing right now with the Rock Republic, but it could change very soon as we finish this second round. So, Cameron, who have you got selected? NHL and UFHL. Do you remember who you picked? I doubt if you picked Dallas, but other than that.
I almost pulled the trigger. I came very close. I picked Colorado in 7. I wanted to pick Dallas, but on 50-50 calls, I tend to go against my heart and kind of let being unbiased break the tie. So I went with Colorado in 7, and I've been kicking myself for a week because as soon as game 1 started, Dallas has been playing really well. So I wish I'd have picked Dallas. That had been really good for me, a good opportunity. Like Larry said, one series could be 8 points. So if I'd have nailed Dallas in the correct amount of games, that's all of a sudden jumping up to a tie for first place. So definitely disappointed in that, but I have Colorado in 7. I have Tampa Bay. I have the Islanders. And then I have Vegas. And I do not remember who I have in the UFHL.
Well, I think you're looking to do pretty good in the NHL side of things. But, yeah, UFHL, I'm not looking too pretty there either. But we'll see how it goes, right? Thanks for participating. I think we should remind everybody, because it's always good to remind, that once this round closes, we needed to get your picks in nice and quick before the third round. So watch for emails from Larry. He'll be on your case, and it's good that he is.
Yeah, that'll be a quick turnaround as always. And like Cameron said, had he taken the Stars, We don't see each other's picks until after the deadline to submit the picks when I enter them into the spreadsheet and into the system. But interestingly enough, 21 entrants right now in the UFHL NHL playoff pool. None of them picked the Dallas Stars in this series. So all 21 picked Colorado. So Cameron, if he would have went with his heart, he could have, if Dallas prevails here, he could add a big jump up the standings for sure. So, but yeah, definitely we're coming up likely, I guess, in the next week. By next weekend, we'll need picks for the next round. And the way the NHL has been doing it, nobody wants to stay in the bubble any longer than they have to. So likely this second round's going to end and the third round's going to start the next night. So everybody who's among those 21 entrants, you need to be following the NHL playoffs and you need to be thinking ahead and be ready to make your picks on a quick turnaround. Of course, we'll be down to the final four, so there'll only be 2 picks in each league next round, so it's a little easier. As the rounds go, there's less picks to make and it gets a little easier, but certainly we hope everybody's paying attention and on the ball to make those picks in a timely fashion.
Yeah, a little COVID wrinkle there, and the bubble and everything. But yeah, you got to pay attention. It's you can't be falling asleep this year. It's pretty amazing, and good for you, Larry, in organizing all that stuff. I know it's a lot of work. Hey, let's talk about the last couple of weeks in the UFHL. We only do this podcast every 2 weeks so far, anyways. And man, it's been a whirlwind. Holy smokes! I mean, for guys like Cameron and the scouts and the GMs and Larry, wow, drafts. Futures auction wrapped up. The bids was crazy, but that's done. Then we went into the already drafted draft, a one-time only event, but it's been unbelievable. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, both auctions, I think, exceeded our expectations as far as how aggressive the scouts were with the bidding, and they sort of set the bar quite high for the owners because there was only 9 scouts at the time bidding against each other, and there's 31 franchises. So and I think the franchises were watching the scouts and seeing how those bidding wars were going, and I think they were getting excited to get involved and eager to get in on those bidding wars. So certainly a lot of investment from the franchises as well as the scouts. We had guys like Connor Bedard, who's 3 years away from his NHL draft year, but getting some comparisons to Connor McDavid in some scouting circles, and certainly he was the top player from the futures auction. And obviously on the NHL side, or on the already drafted side, Bowen Byram, defenseman for the Colorado Avalanche, likely to be in their lineup next season, was the top seller there. But the Norse Stars got a couple players as well. They got Klim Kostin and Sasha Chmielewski of the San Jose Sharks. So a couple good forwards for the future for the Norse Stars, potentially. I mean, obviously they could be involved in upcoming trades as well, but good to get that prospect pool or protected list started for the North Stars.
Absolutely. We definitely have been needed to kind of expand and grow and get some of those protected players. And Chmielewski and Kostin are definitely a couple players that I've come across when I was covering the Texas Stars. Kostin was with San Antonio at the time, and then Chmielewski was with the Barracuda. So definitely a couple players who I'd had the opportunity to see. And when I had the chance to get them for good steals during the auction, I definitely jumped at that.
Yeah, both those prospects had good showings. I covered the 2019 World Juniors in Vancouver, and Klim Kostin was Russia's captain there, and I think Sasha Chmielewski opened a lot of eyes as one of the underrated American forwards on that team. Obviously, there was guys like Jack Hughes and you know, these superstar prospects that everybody knew about, but he was a consistent force there as well. So I think both those prospects could become big part of the roster or work their way up to the active roster for the North Stars if they stay in the fold here going forward.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the opportunity to see some players grow and move from the protected list to the active roster for sure. It's going to be a lot of fun to see kids that you drafted when they were younger, or see some of the kids that the scouts drafted and watch them come to fruition. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see those journeys play out in front of us for sure.
Absolutely. You said it best, Cameron. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch these kids develop, you know, but if I think to the auction process in the UFHL, I have trouble getting any sleep because I just want to know how the bids have changed or advanced overnight. So that's the first thing I do in the morning. But what do you do if you're a bidder? Are you getting any sleep? How do you do? You submit a bid, you go to bed, or do you even go to bed? How does this work?
Yeah, you got to get some sleep. If you try to bid all night, you're just going to rise the price up on each other. So I think, at least for me, I would always try to kind of figure out who I was going to lock in on, find my targets the night before, and then lock in on the actual auction process the next day. So I'm not one to stay up and bid overnight. I'll find my targets, lock in on them, go to bed, and get up and get ready to go after them.
Yeah, get that morning coffee and be fueled for the auction. And certainly the way the auctions work for the most part, I think the majority of franchise owners took that same approach as far as, I think the bidding really got going in that last 5 minutes for each player. There wasn't a lot of franchises that put up their max bid the night before or even early morning of. Nobody really showed their hand, and once the bidding started, it was certainly a bidding war till the end on almost every prospect. So it was fun to watch. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep in those 2 weeks. I think today was the first morning I didn't have the alarm set anyway for a couple of weeks, which I'm not a huge morning person usually. But it was fun to watch and hard to be a bystander. It'd be nice to get in there. And certainly I have my own opinions. I'm a scout as well at heart. So both in the futures auction as well as the already drafted, I could tell you who I think were the steals or who were maybe overpaid. But like Darren said, it's all about watching these kids develop. And my opinion is only one opinion. We'll see where they stand in 3 to 5 years when they are impact players on the active rosters in the UFHL.
So I have a vision of Cameron going out on his deck with his coffee, listening to the birds and saying, "Howard, what should we do?"
Pretty much.
And what does Howard say?
He says, "Go with your gut, Daddy."
Good dog. Good dog.
Oh, yes. He's got a British accent, but I didn't pull it out on camera.
Hey, so we're probably going to end this portion of the podcast, but I have a question for you. And you know what? I'm cheating here because I picked this up from your video, your announcement, assistant GM video. Cameron, because you probably thought of this because you asked Brent the question, but if you, Cameron, had the opportunity to take your favorite hockey player out for supper, dead or alive, who would it be?
Well, it was, your gut reaction would be to go with the favorite player you watched growing up. Mike Madonna would be a great one, but I think I would want to go with Gordie Howe just for the expanse of knowledge that he has, the number of years he played, the different teams he played for. It would be an incredible conversation to kind of see where he was at in the 40s with the Red Wings versus in the early 80s when he was playing with his boys in Houston. Just that is just an absolutely vast time period in which to play hockey. So I think that conversation would be great. And then, as Brent said, Willie O'Ree would be an excellent conversation to see a completely different side of things and a completely different struggle as well.
Interesting. Gordie Howe, good old Saskatchewan boy, hey? Glad you pulled that one out of the hat.
He's Gordie Howe's definitely one of the favorites around here. Our pup at my mom's house is named Gordie Howe, and then Howie doesn't actually come from Gordie Howe, but it was nice and convenient for sure. So it works out.
I like it. So what we should do now before we end the show here is it's always important to talk about some important dates. We have some important dates coming up in the UFHL. In fact, one coming right up Tuesday, right, Larry?
Yeah, Tuesday's the open market commences. So all the prospects that were left over from the two auctions, both the futures as well as the already drafted, there's a lot of other quality prospects out there that are going to be of interest to these franchises for their protected list, and certainly of interest for the scouts from the 2021, 2022, and 2023 NHL draft classes. They're going to want to get their hands on some of those young 15 to 17-year-old kids before anybody else knows about them, right? Which is always interesting. I'm a scout at heart. I put the list together. I put out my 140 futures and my 140 already drafted, but there's thousands of prospects out there that have a legitimate chance of potentially making the NHL one day. And it'll be interesting. Now our scouts, now is the start of the real scouting. Now the real scouting begins, and our scouts don't have the names in front of them. They got to go find the names, and they got to pick out which kids they want. So we're doing just one-time event again, an opening day draft, because we thought it wouldn't be fair if one scout submitted a list of 100 prospects and another scout submitted his list of 10 prospects a minute later, and the first guy got all 100 because he was in first. That's how it will normally work after Tuesday. After that deadline, it'll be first come, first serve, finders, keepers, whether they want one prospect or 100. But just for that one day, we thought, let's give all the scouts a chance to get a list in, and we'll process them in a draft order and just kind of give everybody a little bit of play on the open market. And a lot of franchises have taken that up. They've registered scouts. Some franchises have registered multiple scouts, 2 or 3 scouts. So there's going to be upwards of 20 instead of 9, maybe more than 20 scouts involved, and affiliated scouts with franchises getting some of these prospects for a $20 flat rate. So the scout pays $20, and then the franchise pays the scout $25 to acquire them for the protected list. So is how it'll work. Obviously, the independent scouts that aren't affiliated with franchises, they can throw these prospects right back up for auction to the highest bidder among all 31 franchises, or they can sit on them for a couple years and try and negotiate with the North Stars when the kid has a hat trick in December and say, hey, this kid had a big night last night. How about you give me $50 instead of $25? And you know, and Cameron can see which scouts own which prospects, and he can go and negotiate with them as well and try and network and just, it's a way to build the relationships between the owners and the scouts. But certainly a lot of the franchises are now pairing up with affiliated scouts to make sure they have exclusive rights to certain prospects for the protected list, which is a good idea. So I think it'll be interesting on Tuesday with this opening day draft to see where all the leftover prospects that maybe skipped my mind or you know, just prospects that weren't on my top 140, but are certainly a quality prospect close to the NHL. So it'll be interesting to see how many get registered on Tuesday and where they end up, and whether the scouts are independent or affiliated. There's lots in play, but that's the next big event. And Tuesday's going to be a long but fun day for me, and it'll be interesting for everybody else to see those results.
Are you ready for Tuesday, Cameron? There's going to be a lot
Absolutely.
of chatter. Going to be a lot of chatter on UFHL. And here's a couple of things that I picked up on the chats is, and I don't know what to think about this, but I did see a couple of things come across my desk, a couple of rumors that Larry Fisher and Tony Karandic were thinking of taking a run at the show. So I don't know if the scouts are going to register them or not, but if they are, I heard bidding starts at negative $20 and it might go lower from there. So have a crack at it if you want. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
If you're going to pay me, you can play for sure. I'll take the $20. So you want to get out there on the ice, go for it.
Might have to be how it goes, Larry. I don't know. Are you feeling good?
Yeah, unfortunately for me, and I'm assuming Tommy, we're a little too old for the open market for this opening day draft anyway. They can only go up to 25-year-old players. So we're a little past our prime on that front. But once the roster freeze lifts at the start of October, the scouts will actually be registering all the free agents. And I'm mid-30s, but yeah, maybe if I could ever get back in a rink and play without the COVID restrictions, then maybe it might be worth putting down some money. But that's a joke. Obviously, I'm nowhere near coming out of retirement and trying to make it. But there will be a lot of people, interestingly enough, I'm sure, that will register their own kids. A lot of scouts will register as a scout just to get one prospect, and that prospect will be their own kid or their nephew or their kid down the street. So it'll be interesting, and sometimes those kids pan out, and it'll look really good on that scout. So it'll be really interesting to see which scouts find which prospects. And like I said, now the real scouting begins. The names aren't in front of them. They got to go find them.
I think that's a good point, Larry, too. With the kids' parents coming in and getting involved, we've had parents ask about, kids' prices. We've had a couple of scouts who showed kids what they went for, and the kids were ecstatic to be in the group that they were in. It's just really cool, the different things that are going to be happening as we get bigger and bigger.
That is pretty cool to watch. Yeah, and absolutely. Larry, I was going to say you don't need an ice surface. There is a drywall with pucks embedded in it in Cameron's house garage. I'm not sure where it is on his property, that has a spot waiting for you to stand in front of it.
Yeah, I was a goaltender growing up, so yeah, I see how Cameron's putting holes in the wall. I might not want to stand in his net.
If you want to play goalie, I need a goalie, but yeah, we definitely, the garage there, the puck slides a bit, I can get it whipping, so you might not want to unless you have your full pads for sure.
Sounds like something that we'll have to put on video. Absolutely. And we'll get it done. That's another thing to add to the bucket list. October 10th, entry auction, but we'll have another chance to talk about that. Just wanted to point it out. If you want to do a couple plugs on that, Larry, you can, but we'll be talking about that again in the future as well.
Yeah, that's October 10th. That's the next big date for the franchises, I guess, is that they'll be selecting or bidding on the top 62 prospects from the 2020 NHL draft. So all the first and second round picks, whoever goes in the first and second round of the NHL draft, those 62 prospects will be auctioned off to the Norse Stars, and the rest of the UFHL franchises works much the same as the NHL as far as reverse order of standings and playoff results. We had an entry auction lottery already, the Lafreniere sweepstakes or Lafreniere sweepstakes. So certainly we try to mirror and emulate the NHL as much as possible, and that will be on day 2 of the NHL draft because their draft is October 9th and 10th, and we'll pick up where they leave off on October 10th.
Awesome. Well, we're almost out of time. Cameron Turner, thanks for joining us from the North Stars. You are the first UFHL franchise owner to be on our UFFS podcast. Thank you so much for stopping by. Any final comments, last words?
Thanks a lot for having me. It's definitely been a lot of fun. An honor to have been the first owner on the podcast. Looking forward to chatting with you guys again. Just thankful for the opportunity to come on and talk about the North Stars and have an awesome and entertaining chat with you guys.
No, that's great, Cameron. Loved having you on the show. And like Darren said, learn something new every day. I didn't know Matt Donovan was from Oklahoma. I knew who Matt Donovan was. I knew he's a defenseman who had a decent run in the pros, but interesting to know what he's up to now. Interesting to learn more about the North Stars, more about Brent Baldwin, your assistant general manager, and the direction, the strategy that you guys are sort of taking with the franchise. And like you said, it'll be a lot more fun when the puck drops for real on the 2021 NHL season, which means the North Stars are in action in the UFHL for the first time officially.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that. The first night of play is going to be one for the history books with our franchise for sure. We'll be watching and ready to tweet and cheer on members of the North Stars as they go about their business once the season gets going next year.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Cameron. Good luck to your Dallas Stars.
Thank you.
And good luck into the next season. I know that we'll be chatting and we'll be seeing each other. So thanks again for joining. And I want to thank everybody for joining us on our UFFS podcast number 6. And Larry Fisher, as usual, thanks for dropping by. I want to remind everybody that you can find us everywhere on social media. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on Telegram. But of course, probably the easiest thing that can probably take you to a link anywhere, and there's YouTube as well, but is our website, www.uffsports.com. You can get a hold of anybody there. If you need more information, we can guide you wherever you need to go. I want to wish everyone well. And from all of us here at UFFS, Cameron Turner, Larry Fisher, Darren Bates, I want to say, see you next time. This is UFFF Sports, where you own the game.